Welcome to the Crunch Time Podcast. I'm Jeff Iafrate. I'm actually 1/3 of the Crunch Time Podcast. Booner and Michael Gentry are also part of the crew, but today it's just going to be me. It's going to be a solo video. And I want to kind of break down the game this weekend. Big game. An opportunity for the Detroit Lions to reach the NFC Championship appearance, in which they've only done one time in the Super Bowl era. One time. I know. It's been rough. But like I've been saying, and I've said on multiple occasions, I've said it on Bleacher Report, it's a new era for Detroit Lions football. And what that entails is, I don't know, breaking down postseason football, which I love to do. And I'm so happy I get to do it. I'm so happy I'm making content in January, discussing the Lions. And not discussing drafts, discussing the postseason and them competing. And being one of the best teams left in the playoffs. They're facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, both teams, Bucs and Lions, are both division winners. Tampa Bay Buccaneers 9-8. They won the NFC South. And, of course, the Detroit Lions 12-5, and they won the NFC North. And in both teams, I mean, listen, Tampa Bay they're a good team. You're not a good team if you don't make it this far, and they have. And they beat the Eagles, who, despite what everyone thinks about the Eagles, yes, they're fraudulent. Yes, they have a lot of issues going on. Baker Mayfield specifically, but also that defense looked damn good. And you look at the Bucs season to this point, I mean, you look early on, ups and downs, and then they finished the season winning 5 of their last 6 games. Lions won the last 4 of their last 6 games, or won 4 of their last 6 games, if you want to count the Cowboys' loss. But regardless, 2 hot teams in the NFC. And if you can't mention this Tampa Bay team if you don't start with Baker Mayfield and kind of the year he's had. Former number 1 overall pick, he delivered Cleveland their first playoff win in quite some time. And now he has an opportunity to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the NFC Championship game, but they got to go to Ford Field, and they got to get through the Lions first. And the Lions, not just take away Ford Field, one of the toughest places to play in my opinion, but they're facing literally one of the toughest, most physical teams in the NFL. And obviously you see the Lions hoodie, you see the background. I'm biased, but at the same time, I try to keep things fair, and I want to give credit where credit's due. And I think Baker, that defense, Todd Bowles, and what he's done with that defense, and even their offensive coordinator is going to be interviewed for head coaching jobs. They're a formidable opponent. They are. But so are the Detroit Lions. They faced early in the season. The Lions beat the Bucs 20-6, but they were out a lot of guys. No C.J. Gardner-Johnson, no James Houston, no Jahmyr Gibbs, no Brian Branch, and Dave Montgomery left the game early with an injury. So I just named a handful of very, very key players for the Detroit Lions. Now they got everyone back healthy. James Houston is expected to play this weekend. And boy, he could definitely help with this pass rush. And you're going to need to get to Baker. To me, when you talk about this matchup, obviously offensively for the Lions, it's about getting the run game back on track. The last handful of games, they've struggled to run the ball. They've done it. It's been formidable, but it hasn't been what the Lions have done all year, what we're used to seeing. And that's something that they're going to have to get back on track. Obviously, Tampa Bay, their front 7, very good defensively. But this is, to me, the best offensive line in football, if not 2. You want to put them behind the Eagles? Go ahead. To me, they're number 1. And you got the best backfield in the NFL. Now, against the Rams did a good job, at least late in the ball game, containing the run. And Jared, again, being protected with the run game, he played excellent. But this game, and Dan Campbell mentioned it, Jared is not going to drop back 30, 40 times. It's just not. It's a recipe for disaster. You're allowing this front 7 of the Buccaneers to get loose, and you saw what they did against the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, Jalen Hurts, well, even with that offensive line, because of their inability to run the football, it made things difficult offensively. So for the Lions at Ford Field, and I ain't worried about the crowd. I mean, you guys saw the environment last week. It was incredible. It really was. But this week, it's about getting that run game back on track. It's about Jahmyr getting back to the Jahmyr we saw before last week and in the prior weeks. A very explosive player, a guy that was up there in the league in 20-plus yard gains. That should be the main goal for this offense. I'm not worried about St. Brown. I'm not worried about Laporta, one more week healthier, by the way. I'm not worried about a Josh Reynolds, a Jameson Williams, who scored a touchdown last time they faced the Buccaneers. I'm worried about the run game. And not so much worried, but it's something to key in on. If they can run the ball effectively, stay ahead, and again, you're able to keep the defense guessing, you're able to, establish play action, which Jared Goff is very good in play action. It just makes things a lot easier. I'm going to have the same feeling I had last week of the same take I had last week when mentioning Jared. I don't need Jared to be a Superman. Like, you can leave your cape at home. Now, he did play really well against the Buccaneers early in the season, but it shouldn't come down to Jared having to kind of, catapult this offense into a win. It should come down to this run game, this offensive line, like it has been all year. Jared last week, I mean, boy, he was damn good. I mean, when not pressured, he was perfect. Actually, he was 22, I believe, a 22 when not pressured. But he shouldn't have to play like that every single week. You should make it easy on him, and I think the run game will do that. Now, you flip defensively in what they're going up against. It's going to be tough for him. It really is, for a couple of different reasons. Number one, Mike Evans is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He's one of the more consistent wide receivers in the NFL. But it's not just him. It's Chris Godwin, who's kind of the death by 1,000 cuts guy. It's a Cade Otton, who played really well last week. It's a Rachaad White, who in the receiving game has been very, very good. Now, running the football has been a struggle for the Buccaneers. And I believe they're 31st in the league in rushing yards per game. They're not a great rushing attack, but it shouldn't matter. You're facing one of the best run defenses in the NFL, in the Detroit Lions. I believe they rank 2 in yards per carry allowed. So for that matchup, I'm not as worried. I'm just not. It really comes down to the bend, don't break approach, which this Lions defense has done a very good job of doing, right? Giving up all these yards to number one wide receivers, but in the same breath, also still coming out on top and winning these football games. I mean, look at that last handful of games. CeeDee Lamb going for 200. Justin Jefferson having the game he had. Puka Nacua last week. But they're still winning these games. It's field goals, not touchdowns. And I don't care what team you are in the postseason. If you can't score touchdowns, you're losing. If you convert field goals, you keep kicking field goals, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter, especially at this point in the playoffs where you're making a playoff run. So at least for the Lions defense, it comes back to the secondary bending, not breaking, preferably creating turnovers, because that's kind of been their recipe for success the last handful of games. In last year, the 8-2 stretch the Lions had notoriously last year, that was because they were generating turnovers. They didn't generate one last week, and Matthew Stafford's a damn good quarterback, and he's better than Baker Mayfield. And Baker's no slouch either, but he has shown stretches this season to give the football up. And this secondary is going to have to make some plays this week and take the football away. Now, you start on the defensive line, and Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston now, and Aleem McNeil. Those guys, they got to get to Baker like they did Stafford. I mean, Aiden had a career game in terms of pressure rate. He was in Stafford's face every other play. They're going to have a similar type of game this week, I think, and just, again, not allow Baker to move out of the pocket, extend plays. He does a really good job of doing that. They move the pocket. And you got guys like Mike Evans, who is just a playmaker. I know, he dropped a couple footballs last game, but regardless, he's still Mike Evans, and he's still a big play threat. And there was a couple balls in that game against the Lions in Tampa that they just couldn't connect. They have to have that same mindset going into this game, is bending, not breaking, pressuring Baker, creating turnover, stopping the run, making their offense one-dimensional. I think that's the way to beat the Buccaneers here for the Lions, because that's worked for the Lions so far this season. We know they don't have a great defense, or at least specifically at corner. They don't have great corners, but it hasn't stopped them, and they're still winning games, and they're preventing touchdowns, forcing field goals. And if their offense is scoring like they did the first 3 possessions last game, I know they went MIA in the second half, you're going to win a lot of games. So that's really what it comes down to for the Lions, both offensively and defensively. To me, offensively, getting the run game back on track, getting Jahmyr Gibbs back to the same form we saw him at when he was playing really, really well. Because, again, you have a full, healthy offensive line now. So you have the starters available. Jahmyr Gibbs getting back to form, David Montgomery just being consistent on who he is, especially in the red zone, because last week in the second half, again, like I said, they just couldn't score in the second half. They got to get this run game back on track. Now, defensively, like I said, turnovers, stopping the run or containing the run. And then, of course, pressuring Baker Mayfield, making him, make tough decisions and pressuring him into making mistakes, which they've been able to do that to quarterbacks at times. I mean, you go back, at least for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensively, Baker so far this year has had a great year, and he's done a good job of cleaning up the turnovers as of late, but something's got to give eventually. And you got to win that turnover battle. And Jared Goff didn't have one last week, but winning the turnover battle is probably majority of how you win this game, I think, personally. because that's everything. You let an inferior team through the back door if you turn the ball over, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's no disrespect, but the Lions are a better football team. It doesn't take any, guru to notice that. But turning the football over, it does make it much more difficult. So those are the keys to victory for the Detroit Lions. It's very simple, and I think they can do it this week. I do. Tampa Bay isn't a slouch, and they're feeling confident. They just came off a big win against the Eagles, and they're actually better on the road, believe it or not. But this is a different environment, and this is the playoffs. And you got C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Baker Mayfield chirping back and forth. It makes for great storylines, and the Lions are on the brink of reaching their second NFC Championship, like I said before. So it is a big, big deal. There's a lot of pressure, but this Lions team, I'm not concerned about them sleeping on the Bucs to answer the headline. I'm not, because Dan Campbell's the head coach, and he keeps these guys grounded. He does a great job of that. The entire team echoes the same message. On to the next one. They're not looking forward. They're not looking ahead. They're focused on the Buccaneers, and I do think the Lions are the better football team, and you'll see that displayed on Sunday at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Thank you guys for tuning in. I wanted to give my thoughts on the game. Those are my keys to victory for the Detroit Lions, and let's see if they can get it done. You can tune in the Morning Woodward Show weekdays, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Woodward Sports Network, or you can check out the Crunch Time podcast, and we post all the time, whether it's me, Booner, Mike. We're always making content and putting it out there. So subscribe, like the video, comment your thoughts. Is there anything you'd like to add, or maybe anything you disagree with or you don't like? I'll try to respond to as many people as I can. I'll catch you guys. We'll be making a recap stream, probably a recap video of some sort over the weekend, talking about the game and how it went. So stick around for that. Appreciate you guys. Follow me on all social media at Jeff Iafrate, and I'll catch you guys next time.